Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name's Yusuf Ur-Rehman, and I study religion, politics and society at King's College. And I'm here on behalf of the Foreign Commonwealth Office from Britain. And I'm here for a placement called Discovering Indonesian Islam. So one of the key factors of why they sent me here was to kind of just become aware and observe how, despite having the largest Muslim population, Indonesia keeps Islam within a moderate sphere. And being part here, they asked me to conduct some vlogs, but I thought one step better than vlogs would be to interview some of the great intellectuals. So I'm joined here by Dr. Hamid Fahmy Zarkasyi, whose father was one of the 3 founding fathers of this phenomenal institution. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Dr. Hamid. I'm very grateful again to be joined by you. I wanted to ask you, you're one of the sons of the 3 founding fathers, His Excellency Dr. Imam Zarkasyi. So how was your experience growing up under him? And was there any key fundamental lessons which you might have learned from him growing up?
Well, actually, being the institution that become now Waqf institution, I don't have any privilege of being the son of the founders, because this institution has been given to the Ummah. But the lesson that I can get from my father is that he educated me like they educate the other people, and put me in the dormitory like the people put in there. This is from the secondary level to the university level. However, when I was in the university, my father and my other founders give me so many lessons during the life here. First, in my father education, he is very strict discipline in the houses, and of course the situation of the school is the situation where I'm living educate me very much. The environment, environment of the pondok or pesantren is useful for my education. I come to know the people from other cities in Indonesia, and I came to know with the one from the Australian. So the situation become like metropolitan, because so many people come and know, and of course they know me and respect me. But my father said that you don't need to be respected because you are only my sons. This is the education that I get. Even in the village, my father is very respected person. But even he said to the people that you don't need to respect my son because my son is not me. This is the education that I get from my father. You may imagine like in Pakistan, he is like a landlord, very respectable person. But he did not educate his son and his children in the sense of this kind of privilege.
So there's a real sense of equality and purity there.
Yes, right.
And so your father, he's a visionary. I mean, this institution is modern in every sense of the word. I mean, I've come here and I've had to make no adjustments. In fact, it's just like being in the West. So what do you think, or what characteristic did he possess which allowed him to create the system, which is timeless? Because, I mean, the foundations were laid over 90 years ago, but it's still applicable and to everyday life and relevant. So what do you think allowed him to become such a great visionary?
I cannot explain actually where they have the idea from very the beginning, because the situation at that time is the occupation of Dutch and Japanese, also British. But the thing that I really believe is that their ancestors are the Muslim scholars in the past, and they also have this kind of institution. You can, for example, visit the old institution, which is established in 1780s, something like that, and produce so many prominent figures in Indonesia during the Dutch occupation. So I think they realize that they are the ancestor of the great people. So they they try their best to produce another institution which is better than in the past. It is one thing. The second thing is that they have very great desire to pursue the study as high as possible. So my father has so many institutions he pursued, from the traditional into semi-modern madrasa-like, and like for example in Middle Java we have what we call it Mamba ul-Ulum. This is kind of traditional and modern kind of madrasa. Teach the religious and secular sciences. But on the other time, he also have the education in traditional one. And then he pursues in Sumatra. Sumatra is well known with the idea of modernization in Islamic thought and education. So he pursued in his education for. We don't have this kind of a level of education. After secondary, they still have another secondary level, because we don't have university that time. So when he came to pursue the study in Sumatra, they get the new idea of how to have Islamic education which is combined with the secular or general knowledge or the general sciences. And then he also got the idea of how to teach Arabic in modern method of teaching. This is the idea. But the situation also drove them to have the idea of how to produce the Muslim intellectual who are not only having religious sciences, but also the general sciences. And inspired by the idea of Aligarh, at that time, it was the only university in the Muslim world that teach Islam and science simultaneously. This is the idea that bring them to have the idea of establishing university in such kind of qualities.
Actually, you've answered one of the questions I was going to ask, because I was going to ask how you've managed to keep a balance in this institution with equal importance on religious and secular subjects. But you've answered that for us.
Oh, another point.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, so you made an interesting point that the founding fathers, the political environment they worked within was under Dutch occupation. And usually we find when there's external forces which influence a country, usually the form or the reaction is to the extreme. But instead this was very moderate. So how do you think they were able to keep it moderate rather than... So for example in Egypt, when President Nasser came to power and he had his secular ideas, the Muslim Brotherhood and other groups, they were forced to go right-wing and very extreme in their ideologies. Whereas here we find the complete opposite. We find peace, serenity, and Islam in just within its moderate form. So how do you think they were able to implement?
Well, perhaps the reason is that in that time the leaders, political leaders and religious leaders very different. So he cannot take a very extreme way of confronting the Dutch occupation. And of course, the religious people at that time is very marginalized.
Yes.
They are not in the middle of confrontation with the Dutch. So I think the founder of this school take the safe way, but I think very strategic to face the idea of liberation or independence of Indonesia, because building the people is more important than confronting directly with the Dutch. And even when they see the situation of Islamic education at that time and the people education in Indonesia in general, they see that the way of building Muslim society is not perfectly correct. So they try to modify how to educate the people and the level of the quality of those Muslim people up to the standard of the secular people.
So it was like a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach, whereby every individual acquires the correct Islamic knowledge, which then brings the society collectively together. So educationally, you studied across the world. You've got exposure in England, Malaysia, India, Pakistan. How important is it to experience different cultures. I mean, they say that when you travel, you never return the same. And I can vouch for that because I've learned a lot of things here from the students. I mean, even the students in the Gontor boarding school. So how important is this exposure? And once you're exposed to certain things, how do you then know and sift out the right and the wrong knowledge, or how to apply that knowledge which you've learned?
Well, when I graduated from this university and for BA level, my father sent me to the place where the people speak English. So he sent me to Pakistan. So he wanted me to know Islam is practiced, but people also speak in English. But the thing that I got in Pakistan is not only people speak English or also write in English, but they have their culture. The thing that I point out very seriously is that the people there have very strong individual study. People study and write and produce the scientific work, not because of the society is driving them to do that. Many individuals in Pakistan, I see, or also in India, very productive. But the society, I don't see in society people have some scientific discussion or some seminar or something like that. This is not very common. Like in Indonesia, for example, people have many events of seminar, conference, and discussion, forum group discussion on many things. But here, people is not quite productive.
I thought the opposite. Yeah. I thought people in Indonesia are more productive.
No. In the sense of intellectual leadership.
Like taking initiative.
Like, for example, we see Professor Khurshid Ahmad, Professor Anis Ahmad, and Professor some other, Maulana Maududi, and some other people. They have no scientific society as large as other countries in the West, for example. But they produce so many scientific work and publish worldwide. But in Indonesia, the people don't have this kind of productivity in scientific work. But the problem also that they don't write in Bahasa, in English in Indonesia. If you compare this seminar, scientific discussion or conference between Indonesia and Pakistan, Indonesia is more. But the productivity of scientific work in Pakistan is more than in Indonesia. This is the thing that I noted, and I think many times, why people here are very productive, but they are not engaged in social, scientific, even on discussion. This is the thing that I can notice. Some other thing that very important for me to learn is the way the people deal with Islamic spirit, Islamic zeal, and Islamic brotherhood. It's very clear that Muslim country with other Muslim country have very tight relation. People in Pakistan, when they listen about Indonesia, they like very much because Sukarno has very great role during the war with India. And when I traveled to some other country, also in India, I went to Aligarh also that time. I see the people very serious when they talk about Islam and Muslim society in India and with other countries. Very important experience when I was in Muslim countries. When I was in England, I still find the people of Pakistan, India, the same spirit that I found there, because people from this subcontinent preserve their Islamicity during their life. They don't have, for example, lost their identity. They still maintain their identity. This is good experience. That perhaps this is the culture. Islam becomes the culture of the mode of life. When they bring to some other places, they still maintain this mode of life. This is very important for me to note during
I think from personal experience, I could say that growing up in the West, there's a lot more challenges to preserve your identity.
Right.
So I think one of the key things is that this culture and our beautiful religion of Islam, to hold on to that becomes even more important, because it's very easy to get lost and have the identity crisis of knowing right from wrong. But when you hold on to that, it gives you a greater sense of direction.
Right.
And so another question to ask you. So Imam al-Ghazali, he believed that the key aim of education was to make it useful for the individual and society.
Right.
So he believed that it would help to create clear social boundaries, which would establish the right, wrong morals.
Right.
But we find that with many factors such as globalization, modernization, and the increase of secularism, that's arguable, but these lines or these boundaries become blurred and less clear. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course, not only Imam Ghazali who have the idea of to preserve the Muslim identity. The thing that people always think is about the knowledge. Islam is knowledge, of course, and you improve your belief with the knowledge. And of course, our ulama, our scholar, have the idea of improving the scientific quality or intellectual capacity of individual Muslim to achieve the quality that is higher than any believer of any other religion, of course. In the sense of identity, of course, when you believe in God and you have the knowledge of that belief and you improve your knowledge into the action, of course you will be very different identity with other people.
Correct.
Yeah. In the situation where now people are breaking this kind of boundaries or the breaking of this identity, we should not lose our identity, of course, and we have to preserve from the perspective of knowledge, not only politics or some other. The first thing that we have to preserve is the knowledge of being Muslim, and the knowledge of Islam brought us into the belief on the supremacy or the idea of God, the unity of God. And the idea of unity of God should be improved into the self-consciousness, that the person who believes in God should act according to the Islamic injunction, depend on that belief. And of course, this is the identity of Muslim. If they face, for example, now the idea of globalization, the idea of liberalization, secularization, for the good Muslim or the Muslim who has a good quality, they have no problem with this kind of hindrance, unless he maintain the identity of Islam based on the knowledge and belief. This is the point that I noted from the idea of Imam Ghazali and other thinkers.
So sort of religion was said to have been kept out of politics because it was seen as the strife of conflict in Europe and its history. So there was an argued rise in secularism. But now what we're finding is that secularism is actually declining.
Right.
And people are looking for a sense of transcendence, or they're looking towards religion or God, because secularism has failed in many aspects, such as it's not satisfied people economically, for example, across Europe. So what do you think it is about secularism, about religion? Or what does religion have to offer, which secularism doesn't? Yeah.
Nowadays I also find that in the West, people start thinking about the privatization of religion.
Yes.
Because in the modern age, people try to privatize their religion. That
like
religion
believing without belonging?
No, man. The religion is belong to private life.
Yes.
Yes. It's not social life. But nowadays, when the people of the West find that Muslim wearing hijab in the social life, and Muslim also perform their prayer, Jumat prayer, in the huge place and a large place where road even blocked for that kind of event. I mean, this is kind of social activities. And also people talking about Islam in the open air, for example. Now people start thinking about how to make religion social. But the problem is that in the secular world, no religion can be public.
Correct.
Yeah. Correct. Now people now thinking about revise. They think about the idea how to put religion in a public place, but not in the sense that all should be religious. This is one thing. I think they are now confusing about this situation. Yeah. They are confused. Therefore, I got the idea of Peter Berger. He said that when we export or we produce the idea of scolarization, the Muslim words, and we come to know that it failed to do that. He said, what about introducing the idea of pluralism?
Correct.
Yes. Pluralism is a kind of idea that is more
all-encompassing.
More strong than secularization.
Yes.
Yeah. They only not separate between religion, the truth of religion, the truth of politics, but they also separate between they combine many religion into one. Yeah. This is of course deconstructing the belief of the faith of Muslim, because they similarize the theology of Muslim and other religion, and even in the idea of transcendent unity of religion, they similarize all gods into one God.
Yes.
This is the idea of pluralism. So it seems that they want to produce this kind of idea and export it to Islamic countries. And I don't know what the idea that they want to get from this relativistic idea. This pluralism is based on relativism, of course.
Yes.
And this is part of the postmodernism. And I found now people try to also spread the idea of relativism in all aspects. In the politics, in social life, in culture, in religion, even in belief of the historical religion. They want to make it similar.
So, sir, do you think, you were just talking about entering a postmodern age, do you think we have entered a postmodern age? So we no longer have a universal Islamic identity, but instead every country, according to like their own way of life, and every Islamic individual is different. So we can't come together with a universal identity.
No, I don't think so. What I mean by postmodernity is the spread of the relativity. Okay. People now try to make, first they want to make a plurality of identity. They try to have this kind of idea, Indonesian Islam, Indonesian Pakistan, Islamic Pakistan, Islamic Malaysia. This is simply cultural identity, actually. But they want to put it, Islam in Indonesia is not Islam in Malaysia. Yes. Islam in Pakistan is not Islam in UK. They just want to put this and make it very relative. Yeah. Islam is very relative. You cannot claim that Islam in Indonesia is the only true Islam.
Yes.
And then they step forward into another idea that Islam is not the only true religion.
Yes.
There's another religion that might be, they are also come to heaven. This is the idea of transcendent unity of religion. So they ask Muslim, they show to the people, the Muslim people, don't even very confident that the only Muslim are going to Jannah.
Yeah.
This is the idea of pluralism. So this is a kind of the globalization and postmodernism and liberalization. This kind. I think we don't need to confront this kind of idea, but we have to, what we call it, civilizational dialogue. I just come to my conclusion. There's some conception of the Western people toward Islam, and also there's some misconception of the Muslim toward the West.
I completely agree.
the Western people try to export their idea, their ideology, their belief, or anything they have, they believe that it is true to Muslim world. But in fact, there's another teaching of Islam that might be irreconcilable with this idea.
Correct.
But they don't care about this.
Yeah.
So what we call it, the modernization, secularization, liberalization, idea of pluralism, this is kind of misunderstanding of the West.
So actually Islam can fit, or these things can fit into Islam, but it just takes the correct view.
No, we have to discuss, because some point that might be, can be fit to Islam, but might be not. But the Western people, they don't care about this kind of thing that we cannot accept in Islamic thought.
Right.
This is the problem. And the problem also that some Muslims accept it.
Yes.
They accept any idea from the West. They think that they have a good idea from the West, and we have to take it for 100% without any correction. So misunderstanding of Muslims intellectual are there also.
So I think you make a key point that you should be aware of what you're absorbing, rather than blindly just believing and thinking that whatever you're taking in is superior to what you already know.
Yeah, right.
And so a key issue which we face in the West in terms of gender roles is, for example, in Islam, equality does not mean identicalness.
Right.
So women, there's a strong rights culture amongst the female Muslims in Britain.
Yeah.
So for example, I've heard some female Muslims say, if we have to wear the hijab, then you should also wear the hijab.
Oh.
So things like this, narratives like this, but these are genuine concerns. So would you like to comment on that?
Right, yes. This is actually the idea of feminism and gender equality. And it is very recently exported or spread to the Muslim world. And even in our tradition or fiqh, or Islamic jurisprudence, we don't have this kind of equality. We are not, Islam does not teach about this kind of equality. Man and woman is created very differently, and they have their own duty and tasks, and also they have their own sharia and their own law to practice. And similarity that can be adopted from humanity is that woman is human being and man is also human being. Unlike in the Western tradition, that woman is regarded as half of the man.
Yes.
And even I found in Latin what is meant by feminism is constructed from the word fe and minus. Fe is fat, minus is minus, lack of belief. This is the meaning of feminism. It is not Islam, of course. In Islam, we have the same duty to God, and Islam respect women very much.
Yes.
But the feminism and gender equality do not realize this kind of respect. And they have no tradition of respecting women in such kind of higher level in the humanity. Even the Jannah, the heaven, is on the leg of the woman.
Yes.
This is not available in the Western teaching. So to produce or to export, to spread the idea of equality in such kind is not compatible with Islamic teaching, of course.
Correct.